Welcome to Hair 101, a podcast where you'll learn all you need to know about hair, color, science, and of course, the importance of the client experience. Whether you're an experienced stylist, just starting out, or have a curious mind and want to know more about your hair, this podcast is for you. I'm Nicole Manzer, salon owner, master stylist, and your host. I'm so grateful to share 20 years of my most valuable and timeless insights with you. Here we go. Hello and welcome to my podcast. I'm so glad that you found me and that you're taking the time to teach yourself something today. So we're getting into the law of color today. So hair coloring is based on the law of color. Theory and law are constants that never change. The laws an artist follows to mix their pigments are the exact same laws a hair colorist follows to produce brilliant hair color. Once you've mastered these laws, they will provide you with so much artistic freedom and create unique and individualized hair color for each and every single client that you have. The universal law of color states that every color imaginable can be formed by mixing three primary colors together: red, yellow, and blue. It also doesn't matter which color line that you use. These principles are going to remain the same whether you're jumping from one line to the next. So this allows us to really understand the law of color and be able to jump from one line to another until we find the line that we love to use and works well with us and our creative ability. Now, in every single color line, we have the same principles. So we have a level. The majority of the lines have a scale of 1 to 10 to determine the lightness or the darkness of the hair. We have the tone, which is the warmth or the coolness of the color itself. We have the base pigment, which is the predominant pigment or the shade of a tonal family. And then we have the remaining pigment contribution or the underlying pigment, which is at the natural level of the hair. What's the main colors underneath that? And that is typically a warm color, but what's the main color underneath that? And then we have the color wheel. So as I said before, every color imaginable can be formed by mixing three primary colors together. The yellow primary color is the lightest primary and it reflects the most light. Red is the brightest primary and it absorbs as much light as it reflects. And the blue is the darkest primary and it absorbs the most light, and typically it dominates the red and the yellow within their hair. So primary colors are classified as either warm or cool tones. So the word tone, it describes the range of colors from warm to cool. Blue, the only cool tone primary color, dominates red and yellow, which are the warm tone primaries. Warm primaries, when mixed with blue, become a cool secondary colors. So the secondary colors are two primaries mixed together in equal portions to create a secondary color. The three secondary colors are green, orange, and violet. Orange is a mixture of red and yellow, the strongest and only warm secondary color. Green is a mixture of yellow and blue, the coolest secondary due to the blue overpowering the yellow. And the violet is a mixture of the blue, red. Blue overpowers the red to make it a cool color. Then we have our tertiary colors. So this is a primary and a neighboring secondary color. When mixed together in equal proportions, they create a tertiary color. So a yellow-orange is a yellow-orange, which is a warm. A red-orange is a red and orange, which is warm. Blue-green is a blue and a green, which is cool. You get the picture here. So when you're using the color wheel, you'll truly begin to utilize the color And when you're a colorist, it will give you an unlimited possibilities, because not only can you work across the color wheel, you can work through the color wheel using the levels of the color as well as the different tones. So how do we use the color wheel? Well, when you're mixing the three primaries together, red, blue, and yellow, this creates brown. Natural hair contains all three primaries. That's a really good thing to remember. These primaries are present in various amounts, creating a lighter, darker shades of the hair color. To enhance or create color, work around the wheel. To refine or neutralize a color, you work directly opposite the color wheel, also known as complementary color. So when I was first starting out, I would always think, okay, red and green are complementary colors, they neutralize each other, and I would remember that as Christmas. Orange and blue, I would remember as Halloween. And yellow and purple, I would remember as Easter. And so I'm always thinking about trying to relate it to something that it kind of has in my mind. So for example, violet neutralizes, removes yellow tones because yellow's located opposite on the violet on the color wheel. This neutralization occurs because you're combining a primary color, yellow, with a secondary color, violet, which is a mixture of the two primaries, red and blue. In doing so, you are truly mixing all three primaries together, thus creating a form of brown. So then we have our level system within each color line. So a color level describes how light or dark it is, and it's not to be confused with the tone, which describes the color warmth or coolness. Level 1 typically is the darkest, and level 10 typically is the lightest. So I'm going to go off the international level system. Level 1 is black, and level 10 is a very light blonde. So we go from a 1, which is black, a 2, brown black, a 3, darkest brown, a 4, dark brown, 5, medium brown, 6, light brown, 7, dark blonde, 8, medium blonde, 9, light blonde, 10, very light blonde. So this system is used to denote the lightness and the darkness of the natural hair and the hair color palette. So you can use it to either pick a color tone that you want or to know where you're starting with. And then we get into our remaining pigments or our underlying pigments. So when the hair is being lightened, bleached, its underlying blue shades are visible first, then the red, and then lastly the yellow. So we're talking about if we were to take black hair and put some bleach on it, the blue would show up first. It is really, really quick. Sometimes you can miss it with your eyes, and then we go red, and then we go lastly yellow. Varying shades of red-brown are seen when lifting from darker levels. The shades that remain are called the remaining pigment contribution or the underlying pigment. And how they work within the international system is a 1 where it's black, the underlying pigment is blue. Number 2 where it's brown-black, the underlying pigment is a blue-violet. 3 where it's the darkest brown, violet is the underlying pigment. 4 at a dark brown, red-violet is the underlying pigment. 5 where it's medium brown, red is the underlying pigment. 6 at the light brown, it's a red-orange. 7, which is a dark blonde, orange is the underlying pigment. 8, where it's medium blonde, yellow-orange is the underlying pigment. 9, where we're a light blonde, yellow is the underlying pigment. And 10, at the very light blonde, pale yellow is the underlying pigment. So what do we need to know about the underlying pigment? Well, it changes from level depending on the lifting where the lifting process is interrupted. If only the underlying blue is eliminated, the red and the yellow will still remain, and the remaining pigment will be orange. This orange is the canvas for the hair color that you apply. The combination of the pigment, the underlying pigment, and the hair color's level and the tone will create the final color. The underlying pigment is either enhanced or refined or neutralized. This is critical because it determines your tonal selection when you're lifting. You will choose to either enhance or neutralize the underlying pigment using the color wheel. So if you know that the underlying pigment is an orange, you're going to go and you're going to pick a blue to put in the hair to neutralize the orange, thus creating a brown, which at a 9 level would be a blonde. It is possible to overpower the underlying pigment with a color by choosing a color that will neutralize it, but after fading, the underlying pigment will always remain and become visible. It is stubborn. I always say you cannot fight Mother Nature. It is crucial because it determines your tonal selection when lifting. You will choose to either enhance or refine it. And please always remember that the underlying pigment has the ability to dominate artificial pigment after fading. So just to recap here, that we know that with the law of color, we can create an infinite amount of color using the 3 primaries, blue, red, and yellow. As a hair colorist, in every color line, we use the level system from a 1 to 10. We're dealing with tone, which is the warmth or the coolness. We have the base pigment, which is the tonal shade of the predominant pigment, and we have the underlying pigment, which is the natural undertone found at every level. So at the end of the day, once you master the consultation conversation, you're going to master the formula. So you need to make sure that you have a really good consultation with your client so that you guys can be on the exact same page when it comes to hair color. Thanks so much for taking the time to learn something new today. I hope you apply this knowledge and keep developing your craft. If you enjoyed this episode, please tell your friends and colleagues about us to help us grow and spread the knowledge. You can also leave us a great review. Get in touch with me at nicole.manzer on Instagram with any topic suggestions. I'd love to hear your classic industry insights and share them on future episodes. So please contact me with your tips to make sure you include your name, where you're writing from. All the links you need are in the show notes below. Subscribe on your favorite podcast listening app and tune in next time. Let your inner beauty shine.